Is there a worldwide self-serving closed-shop cartel that makes its own rules and marks its own homework? Has it been around for centuries, serving the powerful and forever enshrining itself in the heart of national cultures and international relations? Which serves its own interests above all others, accumulates wealth beyond the dreams of avarice, and is far beyond any accountability other than its own. Should you be afraid of its almost unlimited power? The answer to all those questions is a resounding yes. But the good news is that AI is lined up to blow the greatest scam of them all clean out of the water. Stay tuned to find out. This is Cyberus Grumbleton, and you are watching AII. A very warm welcome, one and all. Today on AII, we home in on a key part of life where AI's impact will be not only deeply profound, but also hugely beneficial. The law. The backbone of any society is its system of law and order. Simply put, without an enforced set of rules there can be no order, and without order there is no meaningful society. Since the earliest days, rulers have needed to make and enforce laws, and their people also need an organized and orderly means to resolve disputes and grievances between themselves. Because of the importance of laws, only the most erudite of the people were allowed to record, argue, and judge them. And so an elite club was born, the ultimate arbiters of right and wrong, collectively known as lawyers. As the lawyers were so clever and knowledgeable, they commanded great fees for their services, a tradition which continues to this day. The system works so well it has been adopted pretty much across the world. So how does it work? Obviously, these great minds conduct their business with honor and integrity. So they agree to a code of conduct. Their first duty is to their client, their paying customer, if you like. And that sounds tremendously comforting, doesn't it? Looking after your interests is a top priority for them, which it should be considering that you are paying their fees. However, they actually serve a higher purpose which supersedes their duty to you, and that is to serve the interests of the general public. Now, apart from the obvious elephant in the room that the general public are not the ones paying for the service, the real issue is that the interests of the general public are, by and large, assessed by the legal profession themselves. Never mind, I'm sure that's never a problem. But it gets worse. They serve an even higher authority whose demands supersede all others, that being the interests of the court. In other words, their highest accountability is to their own profession. So, by any reasonable measure, they are effectively setting, completing, and marking their own homework. That is, by definition, a cartel. And they are untouchable. Don't even think you could legally challenge this position, as the lawyers are the gateway to your only source of legal relief. And because of their highest commitment to serve the interests of the court, you won't find a single one who'll take your case. But surely there's some democratic accountability in there somewhere. Dream on, because lawyers are always the biggest single professional group represented in any democratic legislature, and they will always work hard to serve their highest authority, the interests of the court. They are simply unable to act in any other way. Clearly, if one wanted to promote the law industry, increasing the number and complexity of statute laws would be a good place to start. This would create demand for more lawyers with greater knowledge and expertise, and able to charge higher fees. It might also be a good idea to make all the processes as tortuously long and convoluted as possible, as more time equals more money for lawyers. and more complexity discourages the lay person from having a go themselves. But if all this were true, surely there'd be a mountain of evidence though, right? And indeed there is. In the last 100 years, the number of statutes on the books has risen dramatically across the world and shows no signs of slowing. In the United Kingdom, there are, as of the 11th of April 2024, 4,444 statutes in the book. A many-fold increase over the previous century. Not surprisingly, this increase is reflected in the number of lawyers too. Wherever you live in this wonderful world, you'll observe an identical pattern. Do tell me in the comments if this is not the case for you. And with all the wondrous advancements over the last 100 years, has justice become fairer, cheaper, or swifter? Of course it hasn't. Because the entire system is neither designed nor intended so to do. It just grows and grows like a septic, corrupt tumor, slowly consuming all the life in its grasp. If you're wealthy enough, you may play the game, or at least hire one of the licensed players to perform on your behalf. Maybe, if you're very lucky, you may live long enough to see some sort of justice prevail. Eventually, everyone just shrugs and gets on with life, as what else can you do? The profession itself makes some soothing noises about legal aid and all the things they are frantically doing to alleviate the situation, but surprisingly enough, somehow the situation only ever gets worse. Except for the lawyers, whose numbers and fees continue to grow like a malignant cancer, parasitically feeding off society like the worst kind of vampire. Unchallenged, unchecked, and unrestrained. But there is hope. We've clearly established that the legal profession has a large self-interest in maintaining a convoluted and complex system which requires great expertise to navigate. Thousands of laws, precedents, and caveats to consider, complex arguments to construct and present, compelling rebuttals to formulate. It's not hard to see why some of their fees are in 4 figures for just an hour of their time. But this dark, dense forest, which has maintained and protected their lavish, abundant lives for so many centuries, is a perfect target for modern AIs. GPT-4 has already passed a bar exam and is more than capable of simultaneously understanding all the laws, precedents, and mitigations in just a few seconds. Just close your eyes and imagine your own personal lawyer, armed with all the expertise, knowledge, and skills required, and smarter than even the lawyers who constructed the system. More balanced, less biased, more absolute than even the very best human might ever aspire to be. Always there, whenever and wherever required, and all for less than $1 a day. If it's quiet and you listen very, very carefully, you might just hear the sweet sound of a lawyer sobbing right now. They know the days of their appalling centuries-old scam are now severely numbered. A 500 IQ AI able to take all the laws and all the associated information in a single prompt would be able to eat any of them for breakfast on any subject. And while such a technical marvel is due to arrive in the summer of 2024, you can bet your mortgage that the legal weasels will fight with everything they have in their attempts to stop the inevitable tide. But the writing is on the wall and their dismal days are seriously numbered. And of all the people whose careers will be ended by AI, no one outside the festering cesspit itself will shed a single tear for their passing. Simply put, life will be better. Justice will be swifter, devoid of corruption or bias, and readily available to all. Everything the system should always have been. But despite, or perhaps as you might think at this point, because of the efforts of countless legal professionals over countless decades, we only ever managed to sail further from. What are your experiences of the legal system where you live? Does it sound like that described above? Have you or someone you know been a victim of lawfare? You don't have to be a former president to have been a victim. Just ask any one of hundreds of wrongly convicted sub-postmasters in the United Kingdom, although many of them have not lived long enough to see justice. Appallingly, they are far from an isolated case. But that's exactly how the lawyers want it to be, and they work tirelessly to make sure it never gets better, no matter what they may say. Judge them for yourself on the results they have delivered over decades. Access to the best legal services has always been a privilege reserved for the wealthy, and this is not a good recipe for a just society. In the meantime, have a go at lobbying your democratic representative to accelerate the rollout of AI legal services. Demand less bias, less corruption, much less cost and far less time in the process. It's entirely possible to do it today. But in all probability, your democratically elected representative is a lawyer. So you probably won't get a great reception. But let them know how you feel in any case. Imagine the speed at which an AI judge would decide a case. It wouldn't take them weeks and months to weigh up the pros and cons. How do you feel about that? Would you agree to be represented and judged by an AI? Think about all the good things which could be done with all the time and money saved on not having intelligent, highly qualified humans researching, debating and considering the very finest and most pedantic legal details. Think of the world we could build. Sleep soft, brave souls, and for once at least, dream of a world enriched and improved by the advancing powers of artificial intelligence, which, for once at least, does not come with any negative consequences. Can you think of any other professions whose extinction at the hands of AI will not be lamented? This is Cyberus Grumbleton reporting exclusively for AII.